This is the latest version of a car that is very much a favourite of the caravanning community, the Honda CR-V. Now, this brand new version impressed the judges at the Caravan and Motorhome Club's Tow Car of the Year Awards 2025 on account of its fine driving dynamics and quality, feel and practical interior. Now let's take a closer look around. This new 6th generation car comes exclusively with hybrid power and rivals everything from a Kia Sportage, 7-seat offerings such as the Mazda CX-80 right up to the posher ranks, including our current Tow Car of the Year, Volvo's XC60. That's quite a tall order, and as we shall see, the CR-V scores well in some areas but drops the ball in others. So, the interior of the CR-V, let's start off with the things that I like. I like the dashboard design. I think Honda have done a really good job here. It's certainly a more modern look compared to the previous CR-V. I love this sort of vent that seems to stretch across the middle of the dashboard, and these little knobs here which change the direction of the air supply. I think that's just a really neat little touch. I also really like the fact there are proper heating and ventilation controls. You don't have to dive into the touchscreen like you do on something like the Peugeot 5008, for example. You get proper knobs and buttons here, and they also feel really good to the touch. Another thing I like in here is the driving position. Now, as by default, you sit up very high in the CR-V, which is great if you like to have a sort of a lord it over other motorists driving position in your CR-V. Not only that, but it gives you a great view out. You can see each corner of the car very, very easily. Equipment levels are very good on the CR-V too. As standard, you get electrically adjustable front seats, you get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, you get this big touch screen and a load of other bits and bobs as well. Now let's mention the things that I'm not quite so keen on. Now, whilst the quality up here and on the middle part of the dashboard is very good, lower down, I think it's a little bit cheap for the price Honda is charging for this car. As a guideline, this car starts at sort of around £45,000. This one's around 50, and I don't like the fact that there's cheap plastics used dotted around the cabin. Also, while we're here, I'm not a fan of this gear selector arrangement. I think it's overly complex, and I've actually found myself selecting the wrong gear at times. I'd much prefer a lever or just a simpler arrangement. Now, my last gripe is with the touchscreen. Now, I like the size. It's not too big like in some cars, and it's at a good position. What I don't like is the software system itself. It's very easy to use. It just looks very, very dated. Let's take a look in the back seats. Now, in the back, the first thing to mention is the doors. They open, well, pretty much 90 degrees, which is great if you're loading child seats in here or loading the car up to go on your touring holiday. It just adds an extra bit of flexibility. Now, once you're actually seated back here, the first thing you notice is how high you sit. You really do sit a lot taller than the front seat occupants, which is great because it gives you a better view out, and it just feels very comfortable. These seat squabs are very, very squishy. The problem with having high seats, though, yes, you guessed it, it is headroom. I'm 5'11". That seat is set up in my driving position, and my head is pretty much scraping the roof. Now, there are two reasons for that. Firstly, like I mentioned, it's due to the high set of these seats, but also this glass panoramic roof. This is the top spec car, so this comes as standard. And you'll see there is a cutout here for your head, but generally speaking, there's not much space up there at all. Now, that aside, like I say, it's very comfortable back here. We've got heated rear seats on this top spec car. We've got an armrest in the middle with two cup holders, of course Isofix points in both outer seats. Now, there is an added extra flexibility back here, something the CR-V has over some of its nearest rivals, and that is fully adaptable seats back here. Now, you do get a 60-40 split folding rear backrest, which isn't that flexible, granted, But these do recline up to 8 different positions. So you can actually, there we are, that's in its most full back position. You can get very, very comfortable back here. Not only that, but these seats also slide forwards and backwards, so you can make the boot space even bigger should you need to. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the boot. Now, unlike most SUVs, the plug-in hybrid version of this car actually has a larger boot than the standard hybrid. 635 litres here versus 579. The plug-in hybrid also has a movable boot floor, which lies underneath this boot line. Let's just lift that up a little bit. And then under here, there you are. You've got some underfloor storage, perfect for hiding valuable items, for example, or just for a bit of extra storage. That aside, you've got a little 12-volt socket on this side over here, and a little bit of illumination on both sides, which is very good. And there's this roller blind here. The only thing I don't like about this boot is when you fold down the rear seats and the boot floor is in its lowest position, there is a bit of a hump to get your luggage over. But generally speaking, in terms of size, this is a very good boot indeed. Choosing which engine to go for in your CR-V is very, very simple. There's a full hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. Now both utilise the same 2-litre, 181 brake horsepower, 4-cylinder petrol engine, with the full hybrid being 4-wheel drive and the plug-in hybrid only being 2-wheel drive. Now, of course, the plug-in hybrid has a much larger battery than the full hybrid. It allows it to cover up to 50 miles of pure electric range, claims Honda. Now, in my testing, I've been getting around 40, which still is pretty good. Now, if you have a normal size Caravan, the only version of the CR-V you can go for is the plug-in hybrid, because it has a max towing capacity of 1,500 kilograms, whereas the full hybrid only has a capacity of 750 kilograms. Now, if you do go for the plug-in hybrid, you get a specific towing mode in the drive mode select. It allows the petrol engine and the electric motor to deploy all of their power together to give you the most amount of punch. Now, to drive, the CR-V is very, very pleasant. Now, in the plug-in hybrid, the car we've got here, you get adaptive suspension as standard, and it does a lovely job of ironing out all those lumps and bumps and imperfections in the road. It really does waft along. The CR-V is very, very quiet around town, and that's thanks to that hybrid assistance. It's even pretty quiet up to around 50, 60 miles an hour. But at motorway speeds at 70, a lot of noise does enter the cabin, a lot of wind noise, a lot of tyre noise. Aside from that though, this is still a very nice car to drive. The chassis feels very agile, despite the lean you get in the corners due to that adaptive suspension, but the car feels very reactive on a country road, and it's backed up with pretty agile and reactive steering. Unusually, the CR-V has an eCVT automatic gearbox with 2 forward gears to allow the CR-V to better cope with both low-speed and high-speed driving. In normal driving, it's not intrusive, but once hooked up to a Caravan, the gearbox starts to behave more like a traditional CVT and be quite coarse, with the petrol engine sounding strained. The CR-V tows in a very smooth and unflustered way, and coupled with that pillowy ride, it's a comfortable experience. Driving alongside high-sided lorries did reveal a little rear pull, but nothing too severe. One thing that is worth noting is that during Towcar 2025, the CR-V was slow on a steep hill start. In conclusion, the Honda CR-V offers a very grown-up and sophisticated driving experience and feels properly plush on the road.
But high prices and limited engine and powertrain options for those who tow does dent its appeal though.